Greetings and salutations and welcome to this week's Illegitimate Legends. My name is Ahrtgames, bringing you your usual dose of just weird stuff. Now this build, it's one that I've been looking at doing for a long time, and it's also one that I don't understand why it isn't closer to the meta. This is a DPS Dianna build, because as many of you know, Dianna has a very good passive. Every third attack, she deals bonus damage. Magical damage, in a relatively large AoE. But I've looked at it, and it's not just a little bit of extra damage. It's actually absurd. 300 extra damage at level 18, plus a good third of your AP. That's a lot of damage. Now granted, I didn't get much AP to expand on that, but it makes Dianna's AoE potential without building any AP, just building for a physical champion, quite dramatic. She can mess shit up, particularly if you get it nice and close, and it's very easy to get it nice and close because you're Dianna. You've got amazing moves for that. So I roll this build as a jungling assassin, because there's no other real spot that it fits. You don't have enough health to survive top lane, and I really wouldn't recommend going bottom or mid, although I do understand that mid would work effectively. I just prefer to be able to come out of nowhere and mess things up before level 6. Because, like I said, you've got a lot of damage potential with no damage items, simply because of that third strike. The plan, other than that, is fairly simple. The item build is where things get different. But, for the most part, you just dive into your enemy using your ult, or before your ult, just running in. Pull them in with Dianna's, I don't even know what it's called, her E, her pull, and then use the slow of that and your own DPS to completely destroy them, and then chase them as they run, cutting them up the whole way. You win. Done. Nothing else to it. In team fights, your job is to go in not late to the party. You don't want to be the last one in, but after the fight has started, dive right into the middle, pull everyone to you, and then utilize your AoE. Just cut everything up. And that's why the build I've got is what it is. Start with a Wriggles Lantern, because Wriggles Lantern makes jungling really freaking easy. I don't care that there are other items that are also good. The Spirit Stone items are nice, but they're not quite what I wanted for this build. Then move into boots. I prefer Berserker's Greaves, but you can also get boots of mobility if you want really high speed ganks, moving from lane to lane quite quickly. Then get a Nash's Tooth, which is, all things considered, a relatively cheap item, and because its attack speed and AP significantly increases your DPS. It gets you about 60... No, that can't be right. It gets you about 30 extra damage on your third strike, and makes your third strike come up quite a bit more often. Then from there, I go for a Ravenous Hydra, and then DPS in the forms of Zephyr and Phantom Dancer. You'll notice this is more items than 6, or no, it's not. When you replace Wriggles Lantern, go for another lifesteal item. I recommend one of either Blade of the Rune King, if your enemy is highly tanky, or the Hextech Gunblade. Because if you get that Hextech Gunblade, it hybridizes your build quite a bit, so it's not a purely DPS build. But at the same time, it is a massive amount of extra damage output, because it's physical damage, it's lifesteal, keeping you alive longer, and it's magic damage, making your third strike more powerful. It also gives you an additional slow to go with your own ridiculous move speed. to try and keep the enemy close to you. Try and bring all of your DPS to bear like you want. This build is exceptional at minion farming. That's something I have to point out. I have almost reached 500 minion kills in a single game. And I wasn't just farming, because you can go to any minion mob, ult into the middle of it, push your E, turn on your shield, and attack twice, and the game is over. All the minions are dead. They've all been pulled to you and just simply destroyed by your AoE potential, and you can do that to a similar extent with champions. That's basically how the build works. Cut up everyone by getting into the middle of it and just utilizing your AoE. I cannot stress that enough. Use the arcs of your damage, use the range and circles, hurt everyone in a team fight, which is exceptionally useful on a assassin type champion, particularly into the late game. There's not much more to say than that. I recommend, as you are jungling, it's important to start either at blue or red. I recommend blue because Diana's mana costs are fairly high. Focus your shield and then your pull. Those two abilities are going to be much more useful to you than anything else, but get a level of your crescent at level 4. Not very good for jungling, but around level 4 you want to be ganking, and that illumination, if nothing else, is incredibly useful. Q will be your least useful ability throughout the entire game because it just won't have the damage you'd expect from a Diana, but at the same time the utility of allowing your ult to do its thing, really, really useful. All in all, this build isn't the most viable, despite everything I've said, but it points out that a hybrid DPS build, something along the lines of Nash's Truth, Malady, etc., etc., is a very viable option for Diana. Attack speed can bring out the best in her, and I don't know why nobody gets it. Thank you all for watching, and good night.